Hello, everyone, and welcome to another 4D and Wakanda user group meeting. Today is January 17th, 2018. Let's see. On our agenda today, we're going to get a little bit of news about 4DMethod and from the 4DMethod user group. We'll get news from Jim Sobczak and Brian Young at 4D, and we'll get an update from Ricardo Mello about what's happening with Wakanda. We'll get the 4D iNUG digest from Ed Hammond, where he discusses some of the recent discussion on the NUG. I'll handle the what's to know in the knowledge base, reviewing a few choice articles from the 4D knowledge base. And then we'll have our special topic, the 4D web access and Angular2 components made available by Julio Carneiro, who is joining us from Brazil. We'll have general questions and answers, and we'll talk about our next meeting on March 7th. Again, my name is Brent Raymond. I organize the 4DMethod, 4D and Wakanda user group. You can come check out the website at 4dmethod.com and reach out to us at 4dmethod@gmail.com. What we do is we try to bring together a scattered community of developers and users of 4D and Wakanda. And we stream all of our meetings via YouTube Live, as we are currently, to allow people to participate from anywhere in the world. We record all of the meetings and presentations to be viewed again or shared with others, or shared with any of your partners, your company, anyone just learning 4D. It's all a great resource. And we endeavor to provide fresh new content and exposure for users and developers everywhere. I'm just going to jump right to the big news and say happy birthday to my mom. It is her birthday today. So yes, I'm hijacking the meeting to say happy birthday, Mom. And best to have a great day today. So onward with more 4DMethod news. We had a little poll on the website about, are you running preemptive processes now in 4D V16? This is an option that can be activated for methods where you can indicate that a method can be run in preemptive processes, which can take full advantage of the multi-core computers we have today, and it can operate in a multi-threaded fashion, and the impact on your code is just tremendous. So I was a bit disappointed with the only 19% of people who are actually have adapted their application, at least from the responders of the poll. But it's really a great thing to work towards once you see all of the processors jump up in the activity monitor for anybody that's been doing a lot of development over the years. It's very exciting, and you know, when all of the fans kick on in your machine, it's pretty impressive as opposed to the single processor speed of applications in the past. So yeah, everybody try and adapt your applications. You won't be sorry. A little bit more from 4DMethod. I shared a quote with the director of the museum where I work, the Art Institute of Chicago, on Martin Luther King Day, and just really wanted to share the quote and say how we share his vision at the 4DMethod user group, and just to read through the highlight of it here, to provide unshakable spaces where the principles of inclusiveness and diversity may be taken for granted, where there is no question that cultural exchange and understanding are crucial to how we relate and contribute to our local and global communities, where we can reflect on who we are and imagine who we want to be. And I think that really applies to our global 4D focus, 4D and Wakanda focus that we have at 4DMethod. So yeah, so anyways, on to the news from 4D with Brian and Jim in San Jose.
Hi there. Happy New Year, everyone. First, Brent, thank you for that 4DMethod matters. I think those words are very appropriate, and we were proud to be part of the 4D community. When I read them, I passed them along to a lot of my friends and colleagues. So that was pretty awesome. Welcome from the 4D offices here in the heart of Silicon Valley. Our thanks to Brent and Ed, as always, for organizing these 4DMethod meetings and for inviting 4D and Wakanda teams to participate. We're looking forward to Julio's presentation on 4D web access and Angular components, particularly timely topic with the summit coming up. So that should be really awesome. As you might imagine, our entire team here in 4D land is really focused on the summit right now in April in Washington, D.C. Interestingly, it's not as chaotic as it usually is because we started the process so early this year, like months earlier than we typically do. So you can see how relaxed Brian is, and I feel fairly relaxed that we're going to have a killer summit. There's so much to talk about that later. So if you haven't registered yet, technically you missed the early bird special, which ended last Friday. However, our sales reps are compassionate people. So if you're in this meeting and you still want to sign up for the summit and you haven't done so, feel free to give us a call, drop us an email, and we will extend the early bird pricing to you, at least at the end of this week. So interesting to note that several US customers have signed up for both the Washington, D.C. summit and the Paris summit. So we'll be anxious to hear how they compare the two. I think we're going to talk about this a little bit later. As you may have read, yesterday, V16 R5 was released. Major new features include enhanced security as related to SHA-2 and TLS. More commands for 4D Write Pro. We roll out more commands every R release. And of course, new features in 4D View Pro as well, and many more. So be sure you're reading the blog.4d.com to stay abreast of the new features that are coming in the R releases. So as always, with the release of an R release like R5 yesterday, that means the beginning of the beta for the next R release. So on the same day, we began the beta for V16 R6, and that will be the final R release before V17, which is planned for a few months from now. Okay, so that's about it. A bit of business news. We are in the process of closing the books on 2017, and you will hear about the awesome financial performance at the summit in April. Really strong global performances from every subsidiary of 4D, especially 4D Germany, 4D Australia, and 4D Japan. So as we say all the time at World Tours and Summits, it's great to have a global source of revenue, because when the economy is strong in one part of the world, we can take advantage of that. And then when it's weaker, then we can just kind of balance everything out. But 2017 was strong from all sources. So we're going to be really proud and happy to present those numbers at the summit. And good for you as 4D developers. Be confident that 4D will be around for decades to come, as will hopefully 4DMethod. And of course, we owe all of that success to you, our 4D developers, because without you, we wouldn't have any 4D applications to sell at all. So thank you for continuing to support 4D over the years. And that's it for me. Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Ed.
Excuse me while I switch everything over here. Yeah, that actually worked kind of smoothly. I want to keep mine short because I want you guys, everyone in the meeting, to actually get 2 points. The first point, both these are about Summit. The pricing for the hotel room. If you haven't signed up and reserved your hotel room, if you're thinking about going and you haven't put the money down for registration, but you've got some idea you're going to go, you really need to reserve that hotel room, because as of March 9th, that price is going to go up. That price is an excellent price for midweek in Washington, D.C. It's a business town. It's a politics town. And those midweek prices can be really expensive, because that's when the people are in town and bringing the prices up. So definitely register your room and then give sales a call and register your summit. So the other thing I want to talk about, we're going to talk about summit sessions in a minute. Brent's got a slide on that, but we've got a problem. I've got something really great at the summit that we're going to be presenting, and I can't talk about it. I can't tell you the details. So what I can do is I can say not only is the master class going to be on it, but and the advanced training session, which I think the message has gotten out because more than 3/4 of the registrations are also signing up for the advanced training class, which is great. But for those of you who haven't signed up for the summit yet, the reason why you want to do it is because the feature that's being announced is going to have some big impact on the on development in 4D. And I just want to tease you with a couple things, like what we're finding, what we know internally is that developers are going to have a lot of fun with this. It's going to take a platform that you love and add just that bit more fun in developing in 4D. And at the same time, if you have new developers you want to bring onto a project, it's going to help you out there. So if you can make it to the summit this year, you're going to get a lot of impact out of learning about this stuff that I can't tell you about. So that's all I'm going to say for now. I'm going to hand it back to Brent, and thank you.
Okay, now our interest is peaked. we were joking before the meeting started that we were going to try and set up a new section of the 4DMethod website for 4D leaks, and unfortunately, it doesn't seem like we're getting too much specific information today to share. But no, it does seem like there's some very exciting things happening with the language, and I'm sure it's all culminating to a pretty huge major release between 16 and 17 for 4D. So really looking forward to seeing that on display at the summit. Again, the summit, at least in DC, there will be a keynote and a master class and technical sessions on April 3rd. On April 4th, we'll have another keynote, the technical sessions, and the 4D Summit Party, which I was also trying to get out of Jim where it's going to be in DC because there's so many incredible locations there. Some and a few places you don't want to be. So I'll be excited to hear where that is. And then on April 5th, the advanced training that Brian was referring to. So yeah, so check it out on the link there at events.4d.com, and you'll find your way there. But one exciting thing, aspect of this year's summit that I really wanted to mention is I know that they made a concerted effort to have a strong showing from developers in the 4D community. It's a veritable powerhouse list of developers that from all of us from our community, including Gary Pedretti, Danny Bovian, Cannon Smith, John Bachman, Pat Bensky, Balander Walia, Kirk Brooks. I mean, they're all doing really interesting sessions, and it takes a lot of effort. And these are some of the most creative and prolific developers out there right now. So yeah, so it'll be a neat summit to see what they all have to offer. Again, with R5 just being released, there's some nice security updates, updating the encryption standards that they are able to take advantage of. Then there's the new generate and verify password hash. If you've done your own password hashing, this now makes it painfully easy for you to either refactor that code or to write it into other databases where you haven't, where you've been a bit more naughty with your password storage. There's about more than 20 new commands which have been enabled for preemptive processes. That's again, you know, I'm a huge fan of the preemptive capabilities of the application. I hope instead of 20 in the next version, we'll get 100. I mean, I really try and move all of my new code at least to be able to be preemptive. And that's huge. So onward, we have JSON pointers, The new form command, which is just a tremendous thing to have, especially now with the dot notation. It makes it very easy. Instead of passing a whole host of process variables and keeping those around, you can just pass one object to the form, and the form can pass it right back for storage and whatnot, for getting the values out of the form. A massive amount of work being put towards 4D Write Pro, and a couple of commands, new and updated commands for tracking the activity of your server and 4D application. And that's real exciting too, both, or at least one of them using the new collections that are in the language. Again, I think that's a major new feature of the language for V17. Yeah, so there's a full rundown, nice rundown at the blog, what's new in 16R5. So check it out. Looks like more really great stuff coming out in these R releases. So now over to Ricardo to say a little bit about what's happening with Wakanda.
Here we go. Thank you, Brent. Thank you for the method. Happy birthday to your mom.
Thank you.
I'm in Vancouver, as you guys can see. It's a little cold, and I'm passing through the flu season. So I may cough a little bit. And also I'm in a coffee place, so if there's any noise that's a little weird, just let it go. To be quick, in December, we released the version 2.3 of Wakanda. So the product keeps advancing. In that version, we have the multi-stage development, which is very interesting, because now in any one of the files in the Wakanda ecosystem, you can just put global variables like environment variables, which is very nice. And you can define like production, development, and specific type of configurations for every single file in Wakanda. And you have also some sort of a redirection from HTTP to HTTPS now. So we can enforce HTTP. Sorry, we can enforce HTTPS now through the 2.3 release. So just to remind everybody, we released last year one of the versions of the old GUI designer with the WAF and everything. It's still there. It's the version 1.1.5. This is still available in our GitHub place. I want to touch something which is the templates that we have been releasing. Mainly they are Angular templates, and they are available in the blog. So it can be even relative to the talk today. I think they could be easily portable, those templates, to 4D as well, I would say. But the interesting thing is it's coming this month now, 2 new templates, which they are one using observables. Observables is a new way of managing async data. It will be included in the ES7 new release coming, and you know, the observables, they open up a continuous channel of communications to emit data. So it's very interesting. It's a big revolution. One of the most well-known libraries is the RxJS. JS. Angular uses heavily, especially Angular 5 and Angular 4 as well. So it's very interesting. So we're going to have a template on that, and also a template with React Native. So proving that our platform can work with many front-end frameworks. And that's pretty exciting, because React Native has been caught a lot of attention, especially for mobile development. So this opens up more opportunities for the Wakanda community. So in coming up soon to the Wakanda product, this concept of observables that I just mentioned will be native to all the queries in Wakanda as well. So that's pretty exciting. You know, we're going to have a better way to install templates. On the business side, just so you guys know, and to complete this this brief Wakanda snapshot, we are releasing actually a first commercial product and with React Native. It's going to be an app that do car quotes. It's fairly interesting, and it's going to be used React Native completely. We are also working in a bus tracking system, like a Uber type of project. So if you have anything related to tracking and maps, let us know, because we have some knowledge now on that. And we delivered not long ago an IoT project, which is interesting. So it's sensors, and that can be applied to some machines and bring data to a Wakanda backend that then transforms and creates statistics on it. So very exciting projects. And again, thank you again for having me there. And that's all.
Thanks, Ricardo. Yeah, that seems pretty interesting. The tracking aspect of the for the example application, web application that you were talking about. There is a lot of open data out there on things. I know specifically from Chicago for tracking our public transportation and the bike sharing group that's called Divvy in the city. You can actually get data on where all those bikes are in the city. So yeah. Perhaps that would be a fun challenge for somebody working on such a project. That would be pretty neat to see. So, anyways, thanks again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those templates are a great thing to have with the technology that moves as fast as it does in the web application ecosphere. You can get ramped up right away and see immediately how to take advantage of the latest and greatest way of doing things immediately with Wakanda. So, okay, thanks again.
Good, thank you, Brent.
And now I'll hand it over to Ed Hammond, where he discusses some of the topics that have been discussed since our last meeting on the iNug.
Thanks, Brent. Apologies in advance for any kitchen noises, as I don't have a private room for today's meeting, and we are right next to our kitchen in our office. Again, I want to remind everybody that there are tremendous advantages to following messages on the iNug and the forums, the 4D forums. There's a lot of people out there doing the same things that you're doing, or may have previous experience with something that you're about to enter into. So post questions and get some advice from the other developers around you. The forum has some options to email new messages or topics. Chrome has a translate option, so if you get the French messages from the forum, they can be translated easily. I've found there's a lot of interesting stuff being discussed in French. I apologize for the links that we're going to put up on the 4DMethod pages to some of the iNug threads. Nabble is what I generally use so that you have those online, but it's getting more difficult to use Nabble as they put in anonymous contact information for the posters. And my last foray there over the last couple of days revealed that they've probably been breached in some of their protocols, as there seem to be a lot of spam messages on their forums. So be aware of that. So with that in mind, I'm going to follow up on a couple of things that were right at the tail end before our meeting last time. And one of them was from Sanasasan Siddhanathaswamy. And I owe you a beer no matter what, because I butchered that one really good. And he was complaining about undroppable phantom users in 4D version 16.2 server Mac. This involves ghost user connections when running a 64-bit Mac server and using the new network layer, something we here at the museum are very interested in. Apparently, there have been a number of bugs involving this issue that were solved with 16.2, excuse me, hotfix 1, and I would assume 16.3 and up. So we're looking forward to making the jump to 16.3 shortly. From Brad Perkins, he was having an issue where 4D backup caused 4D remote to hang. He was using server 15.4, and it was running on High Sierra. And he was forced to do a system update by the IS staff where his installation was located, and had to go through and reset all of the power settings on the client machine that was running the 4D remote, and that solved his problems. And that's a great reminder that there are a lot of environmental factors outside of the 4D itself that can affect the way your systems operate, and you have to be aware of those at times to track down some strange problems. On with new threads. Pat Bensky wanted to change the field type programmatically for a number of fields. So changing a large number of fields from string to text. And Olivier Deschanels pointed out that you can select several fields in the structure window and change their type through a right click, even if the fields are in different tables, which is pretty interesting. Something I probably wouldn't have tried myself, but nice to know it can be done. Kirk Brooks posted a thread on bad code does bad things. And this involves some general programming philosophy. Always good to fall back on good principles and best practices. And following his own journey into Google land, he cites references to an article on CIO.com, some postings from Donald Knuth, Team Beacon, and Code Mentor. And all of those have good best practices to follow to improve your code base. Kirk also started a thread on execute on server gotchas, and it was it's observations on how execute on server works. And there are comments from Arnaud de Montard and Miyako, among others. And it's a good thing to remember that your code may operate differently depending on where it's being executed. Dave Nasrallah had a thread on what texting services are people using. I know that we do some notifications through email, but sometimes you need to be notified of a condition from your server, maybe a little quicker than that. And there were a number of people who recommended different services for using SMS messaging. Dave also posted a single message, which I found incredibly useful. Are all your tables getting logged? I know our particular application is very mature. It's been around for 15 years or more. Our physical tables don't change that much. So when one gets added, there's a small bit that you can set on your table definition to make sure that it is included in the log file. He posted some code that helps to identify which tables are not included in the log file. So please avail yourself of that, especially if you're doing something like mirroring, which we've started to do here at the museum. And John Bachman is loving call worker, call form, and C object. I noticed that he's doing a presentation at the summit, and he's certainly very thrilled with some of the things that he's been able to do with those new commands that we have with 4D as it adds features. People are now starting to take advantage of those features, and there's some things that we may not be thinking about, and he's pointing out the things that he likes. There were some component and plugin announcements in the last few weeks. Win32 API is up to version 8.2.1. HM Reports is up to 5.2 and is available for 4D V15 and 16, 32 and 64-bit. And it looks like eNode is changing their partner license. So there's a notice on that and how to change the partner license with eNode. And there is a QS Toolbox 2.0 from Patrick Emanuel, and he's making those available. And that is the e-digest for me.
Thanks, Ed. That's a bunch of really valuable topics that are out there. That's a shame about the spam. I guess I'll have to reconsider the links to the cheap prescription meds that was on there. Apparently, bummer. But yeah, so check out the 4DMethod site. We have a page for all of the discussions that Ed references, where he provides links to the pages on the NUG. It's 4dmethod.com e-digests, and register. There's a link here for registering and getting into the discussion yourselves. It's really great. There's just a lot of things that get missed in the documentation here and there over time. Behaviors, undocumented behaviors of 4D, and how to handle tasks and issues that we all encounter running 4D from day to day. So thanks again, Ed. So now a little bit of talk about what's to know in the knowledge base. So first topic that I would like to highlight is just how to use the web preemptive processes article. In a couple of new projects that I've seen where people are going fully preemptive, just so you know that all of the web processes themselves, as they get spawned, can launch directly into preemptive mode, which in turn makes your web server just beastly fast. They can really take full advantage of your hardware. Next one being the discussion of the verify and generate password hash, where the verify password hash can be interpreted many ways. So just showing how flexible those two new commands are. There is a new tech article about displaying YouTube videos with web areas. There's actually also a nice article on this on the blog. We're all making more and linking more videos these days. I know we are with 4DMethod. So it's just with the web areas, it's quite easy to display videos in your 4D application. Great for training or for any other kind of categorization that you're doing with video content. And quickly find tables which are not being logged to the journal file. That's as we mentioned at the museum, we recently found that very useful because we found a table that had snuck away from us, and got to corral that back into the mirroring. And then also another article about using JSON pointers, which is a feature that was released with R5. So that a lot to take advantage of in the knowledge base. Really helps you get ramped up for using the new features in the versions as they come out, and to learn a few things about the language as a whole. So wonderful resource, and congratulations to 4D for really cranking good content into it, and find it very valuable. So check out all those articles. Links are as displayed here. So on to our special topic of the day. We have Julio Carneiro joining us from Curitiba, Brazil. Welcome to him. He's been, you might know him from Pascal Information Technology. I'm going to give a try at the Portuguese version here. Pascal Sistemas Computação. Started in 1979. He's been a 4D developer for a long time. He has developed 4D apps in many different areas through the years. He's operated in broadcast TV operations, management application, that he made for TV broadcasting. 4C TV has been in use at MTV Brazil, HBO Brazil, ESPN Brazil. Seems like the go-to application for managing broadcast TV in Brazil. He's also operated in publishing, direct marketing, pulp and paper, lottery, horse track betting, and wholesale. You might know his name from the NUG and from past 4DMethod meetings. He has done presentations at the 4D Summit. He's really had a large influence in using SOAP to feed Flex applications, and has demoed that at the summits in the past. But since Flex and Flash got dumped by Adobe, and long may they rest in peace. He's migrated his libraries to Angular2 and the 4D SOAP stuff to HTTP calls, client calls, and JSON. And he will be demoing a couple of components on the 4D side and also in the Angular2 side that he's making available to the public and to the user group today. So thanks for joining us, and I'll kick it over to you now.
Thank you, Brent. Thanks for getting this up, setting this up, and keeping 4DMethod and all these presentations every month, which is being useful to everyone for sure in the 4D community. And the Portuguese version of my previous company is close enough.
Butchered, I'm sure.
So I'll just move to share my screen. And you guys don't need to see me. So basically, as Brent has already made the introduction to my presentation, most of the stuff I'll be showing here is based on work I've done a long time ago that started on Flex and SOAP. That was web services and Flex as the front end. Years ago, I was involved in a project where we had external remote users where for the client was not an alternative. So we looked for ways to allow those users to get into our for the application, and web was the alternative. We looked into what was available at the time on the website, on the front end side. JavaScript was a mess. Very few frameworks. They were poorly done, poorly documented. A nightmare to develop in the JavaScript language. Actually, JavaScript is still a mess as a language because it's an untyped language, which means it's untyped, not that it's weak typed. It's untyped. The same object, the same variable can change type along the way during as your code executes. And testing is a nightmare. Then I stepped into Flex. Back then, someone in the NUG mentioned Flex, and I went to look into it. Got addicted to Flex. We did lots of applications with Flex as a front end, where 4D was merely a backend database. No 4D UI, just the web UI using Flex as the front end. And as Brett mentioned, Adobe dumped Flex. And I ended up with a product with a set of tools with no future. So then Flex is still up and running. There are some of those apps we developed are still up and running based in Flex. No problem there. But there's no future for any future projects, we had to go somewhere, use some other platform. And key to moving away from Flex was mobile. There's no mobile support for Flex at all. And so I was back to my research and end up finding Angular2, which is now just called Angular, because it's actually it's in version 5 nowadays. So it's called Angular, and the old Angular is AngularJS. So Angular is the new Angular, which is I got convinced that this was a good tool for a couple of reasons. It was backed and used by Google, a big company, which is not not exactly it's the same thing. Adobe is a big company as well, and they dumped Flex. So no guarantees that Google will be backing Angular forever, but should be around for a bit. So enough for us to make a living. Well, the thing I loved about is the language. It's TypeScript, which is a JavaScript superset, but it's strong, true OO, strong typed. It has a compiler, syntax checker. Very good to develop in TypeScript. I'm pretty happy with it. Browser support is pretty good. So almost your code runs. You don't care about which browser it will be running. It runs. There's a pretty large community out there. So easy if you get lost. Easy to find help somewhere with the community. And one thing I'm using as well is NativeScript, which is a framework for native mobile apps. It's actually native mobile. It's not something like PhoneGap, which is not exactly native, but NativeScript generates native apps. I'll be demoing some of the stuff today. So I got hooked and moved into Angular. So what I did was I had on the Flex side, I had some methods and not exactly a component because it was not set up as a component. It was methods that were built into my shell, which is the shell I use for many applications I've developed. So I converted that to, which was SOAP XML before for Flex, to be better suited for JavaScript platform, HTML5 JavaScript platform. So now it's HTTP and JSON. And I converted that into a true component, self-contained component, which I call it a REST API, for lack of a better name. It was called Flex for 4D, and now it's could be called REST for 4D. I just called it REST API. Actually, I call it 4D REST API, and it's available on GitHub. You can go into GitHub and download it and install it into your application. We'll see how that's done in a bit. And so basically, it's the same code base I had before, which has been tried and tested in many applications, has been running for years, is in production in a bunch of places. So the code base is solid. With the only difference between the original code base and this one is that instead of being a SOAP methods, it's a HTTP for the action method, and the input and output instead of being XML is JSON in, JSON out, and takes advantage of V16 object and JSON support, which is great. And on the Flex side, I also had a Flex for 4D library, which was a library of tools and components on the Flex side to allow Flex applications to talk to my 4D component. I ported some of those from Flex to JavaScript, actually TypeScript and Angular. Basically, some of the code that was in ActionScript on the Flex side converted from ActionScript to TypeScript, which was not too difficult, but it's now based on Angular. So there are actually two components out there: one a 4D component, the other an Angular package, an Angular library. So let me just demo some of the stuff I've developed using those two components. I'll show the web, some of the web stuff and some of the mobile stuff. First one I was going to show is one. This is, forget the Portuguese in there. This is for a pretty small application. It's a licensing manager for managing the licensees to a product called Best Packs, which is my Packs application, which is distributed by over more than 100 sites in Brazil. It's managed by a company called Best Technology, which is a Brazilian company that distributes, manages, supports, and handles everything. For this product, all I do is manage the development. And it shows, basically, it talks to the 4D backend. This is running on a server somewhere in Sao Paulo, in Brazil. Here I have some of the components on this, on my JS4 Angular library. One is by, call this query band, where you can have fields and stuff that you can query on 4D, and a data grid that's pulling data from 4D. This data grid uses a JavaScript library called Kendo UI, and has stuff like I can sort columns, I can select, add, and remove columns from my view. I can filter on contents on that column, to just filtering on the results of that query. And the filter can be either like this, where you can filter equal, begins with, greater than, and whatever. Or it can be just a list of values if that comes from a dropdown. The query band allows me to go for look for anyone that has a HOM on their name, or the clinic name. It allows me to do a advanced query for D, where I can query on any field, any way I want. It provides ways for me to save a previous search, restore, save a record set, select some rows and save that selection for later, restore that, and manage those saved searches and sets. So we can use a saved search. That was one I had done before, which was calling for TKS, anything that has TKS in it here. And I can look into the actual record here. Another component here is this. This is a 4D dropdown component on my JS4 library that pulls the stuff from my 4D choice list to populate on your form, on your Angular form. Basically, that's it on demo on this one. If you guys have any questions, feel free to pop in at any time. Can interrupt you.
Very attractive interfaces.
Yeah, you can interrupt me at any time. One thing it has here also, I can have this data grid. I can export this to Excel. It generates an Excel file here that has exactly the same thing that was on the grid. Okay, so this is another one. This is an application that's running off a server on an AWS somewhere in the US. I don't know. I think East Coast US. This is a 4D application that it's in development. Something that it's being built. It's a movie recommendation engine that's supposed to be a lot better than anything you have nowadays with Netflix and others, which is very limited in terms of how they recommend movies to you. This uses AI and a bunch of stuff to get a pretty good recommendation list for you. And this is just a proof of concept. This is not nothing in production. Just a proof of concept, just to be able to test the algorithms and the engine, recommendation engine, and to demo what this product is about. Let me log in as myself here. So it shows a list of recommendations. Basically, it shows the movies that recommended in an order from the highest recommendation to the lowest recommendation. This based on when you sign up for this, you're given a list of control titles that you rate with 1 to 5 stars, and based on that, it generates your recommendation list. And as you progress and rate movies, it improves your recommendation list as well, based on how you like it or not, different kinds of movies. And so this is for development. So when I hover over here, it shows the result of the engine, why it chose that title for me, what was the score, based on a bunch of variables that are used to calculate this recommendation. Here, for example, if I hit this, uses just watch. If I hit this just watch, it will take me to a just watch page, which is a title. See, as I'm in Brazil, it shows me the just watch the Brazilian version. So see, the title now changed to Portuguese. And one of the things just watch tells me is where this movie is available, where and how I can see this. So it's available for rent on Google Play and Apple iTunes. So let me log out here and log in as an admin here. Now I have a lot of stuff here, so I can, same thing, have recommendations. Those are recommended for that admin user. But I have a lot more stuff here. For example, I can look at this. Oops. Oh, okay, let me just log back in again. Okay, so this is some of the stuff that is also on the library, which allows me to have like movable window dialogues or multiple dialogues. Shows pretty similar interface here. Same thing, I can have some save it search. Stuff that has voice. I can select a row here and just hit analyze. This will bring me different user profiles here. I can look for Samantha and see what would be the result of the engine evaluation of that movie for Samantha. I can edit this record here, and here I can go to the movie website, if that movie has a website. Has some stuff for the movie. I can edit the profile for that movie based on this is the engine that rates. So some movie curator, movie critic does this rating of the profile. Let me iBoy. Oh yeah, see, this iBoy is available on Netflix. One of the things this app does, it looks through this Just Watch. Just Watch tells me where the movie can play, and we select Netflix, HBO Go, HBO. What else? Fandango. Some of the sites that are available there where you can play your titles. So if I hit Netflix, it will open that Netflix page for that title, and I can then play it, watch it, right? So this is it on this one. What else? Okay. One thing I did just for this presentation, that's something that I'll be showing a bit later. I went to 4D website on their resources page, and there are a bunch of demo application or sample applications. I found one that I found interesting. It's called the 4D library sample. So this is I'm using the 4D library sample as it is from from 4D. All I did was install my 4D component on the 4D side, and then develop this on using Angular, using my components on Angular. So I can look for titles here that have X in them, and it shows some information on the title. I can look at details of this title here. It shows the picture of the movie cover, that's the picture that comes from the database. This is available. It's not loaned. This one loaned, so it says to whom it's loaned, has been loaned. So someone has held this book since since August 2013. Was supposed to have returned in September that same year. So this is a
big find.
Yeah. So.
That's great. That's great that you use the sample database. It's
yeah. Mm-hmm. So and same here. I can use looking for all the availables, and I'll filter this for those that are available or those that are non-available that have been loaned. And same thing. There's the students. Can look for Charlie McCoy. See, this guy is loaned, returned to yesterday, borrowed on this date, supposed to return on this date. So the data is the data that was there. They're from 4D. I didn't touch it, or I touched it a little bit because I was playing with the app. Okay, let me try to move to the mobile side here.
I like the effect that you have with the multiple windows within Windows, in the single page web app.
Yeah, that was so some of the apps we developed on the Flex days, and were for enterprise, like for HBO Latin America uses my application, which is the 4C TV application. They are based in Florida, and they have a bunch of Flex apps that we developed to them, which also use that UI, sort of like their users were on Windows, where they have their multiple windows to manipulate the application. So they were happy with that. They wanted that same kind of interface.
Yeah.
So we developed that back in the Flex days, and I ported that to JavaScript, which maintains, because this is not your typical web application. This is a database application running off a web, on a browser, right? So it is still a database application with the look of a database application.
That's nice.
Okay, so are you guys seeing an iPhone simulator?
Yes.
Okay, so here in the iPhone simulator, that same application, Wakanda, I have a version here on the that runs here, so I can, let me try. This is a German user. Oh, this is a Tinder-like application. So you can scroll left if you didn't watch and have no opinion about this movie. If you like this movie, if you like it, you can scroll up. If you didn't like it, you scroll down. If you loved it, you can scroll right. And that will add to your recommendations pool. The application will learn from that, and will allow you to we improve your recommendations. And same thing if I hold on to here, this will not work. Oh yeah, it will. Sorry. So it will open, same thing. It will move to just watch and show me where it is available. You see that this is all in German because I've logged in as a German user. The task user, when you sign up for this, you're allowed to say, you're able to say where you're coming from, where you're based, if you're in. So the recommendations are based, or the page it takes you to on Just Watch are based on your location. So this is the German version of this movie. And I also allow you to look at the recommendations in a different way. Instead of looking them one by one, I can look them at as a list. If I click here on the icon, oh, this takes me to Just Watch. Okay. It also this application also allows you to have, instead of getting the recommendations from your history for your historical rating of titles, it can take from a predefined curated profile, which has someone that curated and created a list of movies based, and this is also matched to your profile to better select your titles. So if I select the roller coaster ride, it would show me a bunch of movies based on that roller coaster ride.
Can I jump in here and ask?
Sure.
This is running with React Native. Is that what you said in the beginning?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. This is native script.
Native script. I'm not familiar with that.
Native. That's from Telerik and Progress, or the Progress of Telerik. Native script. Very nice set of tools that generate a truly native application on mobile. And actually, the same application runs on iOS. Same code base runs on iOS and Android. I just built for the different platforms. Let me.
Thank you.
Same thing I did for, so this is showing the native script. Same thing I did for my book application. So if I go and hit X here, it would, same thing, show me the titles if they're loaned, they're available. I can click here, it tells me something about the title. This one has a description. It says that if it was loaned to whom and when. If a book is loaned, like this one, right? I can use if I swipe right, it shows me a button here. I can hit return. So confirm that the book has been returned by, now it's available again. Or same thing, if this movie is available, now I can loan it and I can look for, get the student that's in there. Confirm loan. Now this book is loaned to the student. So mobile app. Or I can look at the students. Here, I don't think I have, no, I have not. I didn't develop a form or a view for a student record to display the students. So this is, again, is a native script. So, and one thing I like, and I would say I don't like, I love about this platform, Angular plus native script, is that the code base for both applications is the same. It's one single project that has some HTML templates for the web, is some XML templates for mobile. And I build for, I can build for web and build for mobile.
I added a link to the native script site to the post for your presentation. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a link on my GitHub that will be showing it soon.
Great.
Okay. So let me just go back to. To my Google app here. And I'm going to show just one app, last one. This is I call 4D admin. It's a 4D administration application. So this is an application that works with any database, 4D database that has my 4D REST component installed you can make you can use this for the admin application to manage your 4D database. So let me see this. This is connected to that Wakanda database, which is running on AWS. So this has a 4D list editor. This application has no 4D choice list, but it allows you to edit lists. You can add items, move items, reorganize items here. It updates on the 4D database. So just a choice list manager that you can do from the web. Or a browse table. I can browse tables. So these are all the tables on this database. I can select my features table. By default, it brings all the columns that are indexed in that table. You can add or remove items from here, columns from here. Or you can save a previous configuration. I have one saved with only a bunch of columns here. I can, same thing, run a saved search. I had one, same one for boys, list me those boy records. If I double click here, it shows me, pulls all the fields from the database, and I can edit this record, modify any modifiable field. Fields that are read-only here, like this is read-only, this is read-only. And let me show this exhibition room. This exhibition room is has a related one to a theater table. So I can, I'm still browsing exhibition room, but I can browse by add a theater name column here. And the theater name, I want to add it to my quick query here. And I just put add here. I just bring everything. See, so it shows me the theater name. All right, and I can then add more stuff here and rerun the query. Just add or remove columns. And I still have the functionalities here. I can filter by contains .l, which is the word there. Didn't work, right? Well, it was uppercase B. Okay, so basically this is a 4D admin application. I have a mobile version of the same app that allows you to do the same thing. Browse a 4D, so from your iPad or your iPhone, you can connect to your 4D database back anywhere and damage it as you wish. And so this is something that you will only use in a very limited situation. Only very few users would have access to this, and that's not something that you would make available to the world. But it's pretty powerful because, especially in our case, where we have many applications with no 4D UI access. So we had to access and do some maintenance from the outside. So that's the tool I would use to do that kind of maintenance. That's it for demos. Anything else? Any questions so far? So how to get up and use this kind of stuff? There's a bit of a learning curve for sure. If you're a 4D developer, basically 4D developer, so the stuff on 4D side is basically dropping in a component. There's not much to do on 4D side. But on the UI side, if you're doing the UI in Angular plus native script, there's a bit of a learning curve. Same thing with Wakanda or any other platform or framework you decide to use. You have to get familiar with HTML5, JS, CSS, Angular, TypeScript, your different IDE, your application development editor. I use VS Code, which is fantastic. It's perfect for, I'm pretty happy with it. You have to be familiar with Git and GitHub, which is how you save and make your stuff available, and you pull some other components and stuff some other people have developed. You have to get acquainted to Node, NPM, Node packages, Grunt, Gulp, Webpack. If you're doing mobile, you have to learn NativeScript or some other mobile platform, a framework. One nice thing for getting started is seeds, what they call seeds. There are seeds for different frameworks. There are a bunch of Angular seeds out there, which is basically a skeleton application, which has everything ready for you to put your stuff in it. You just draw the application environment is ready for you to get started. The one I like it, and I've used the Team Maestro Angular native seed because it combines the web and NativeScript on the same seed. So when you get it, you get both. Your application will run on both platforms if you follow their rules. And basically that's stuff that we'll have to learn to get use this new stuff. So let's get to my REST API component. It's a V16 version only. There's no component for previous versions. I componentized it only for V16. I have the code running on other versions, but on V12, but for example, but it's not as a component. So all you need is a V16 app and web server active on your application, on your data, in your 4D structure, and you just drop the component. You can get it here on the GitHub. This is for if you're not familiar with the GitHub, this is what it look like if you go to 4CTV 4D REST API GitHub. That's the URL. When you hit there, you have to get to a README page with instructions, how to use it, what it does. I try to document it as good as I could. I'm a terrible documenter, way far from a guy like Dave Adams. So most of my documentation does not look much worse, much different than my code. So, but I made the effort of documenting this. So basically, what you need is to drop the component which is available here. That's it. You have two versions: the source code and the built version of the component on GitHub. So if you come here to this green button and you download, you get everything on a zip file. And so on that zip file, you have the source code and the built version. You just drop the built version, and you need to install some methods on your application because a 4D component cannot have access to some stuff on the host database. For example, lists, choice lists. You cannot access choice lists from a component. So if you intend to use the 4D admin, for example, or you intend to pull lists, choice lists from your 4D application, then you need to make a couple of methods here available on your host database and make them shared by components and the host. There is in the samples directory, there are samples for all of those methods and an actual database where you can just open a copy of 4D and drag and drop methods from the sample to your 4D application. And basically the sample methods, one is the one that validates a user. It's given a user and password. It needs to validate it. So it's your code based on your database. You validate on your own database. If you use 4D user management or use your own user management, so it's up to you to develop that user validate user. And this get user options, get user groups will just return a list of groups, and get user option will return a list, an object with a list of options of values that you use on your own application. So that will be made available by JS for 4D library to your front-end application to know stuff about the user. For example, on that Vecchiano application, one of the stuff that's sent by that user options is the location of that user, if that user has admin privilege or is just a viewer, or is a curator of the application. So the user privileges on that application. That would come on that get user options. And the library makes available a bunch of REST API entry points or for the action entry points that are called from the web. One is the get version, just returns the version of my library. The get application version is supposed to return the version of your application, your host application. The REST authenticate is the one that authenticates the users and passwords. Get records will do the query, return a list of records. Load data loads one record. Post data inserts one record. And the other ones are used by the admin for getting a list or managing the lists on 4D side. So there's not much here. Any questions? Let me share here.
No, I think we're good right now.
Okay. Okay, so are you looking at the Explorer?
Yep.
Right. Okay, so this is the 4D library. So I dropped in my components. If you look at here, the commands, the methods, have the component methods, the REST API, my methods are made public. And the methods I've added to the database are here. I put it into a folder, web access. So the init get application just returns a number. List array to list gets a list name and a pointer to an array where it has to return. So it returns back to my component the contents of the opposite gets from array within the component and populates updates a 4D list. The validate user on this 4D library had no user management. Anyone can get into that application. So I pulled in the sample code and just put a return true for whatever user and password you pass in, and then it falls into this what is in the sample database, which just validates it against 4D database. So basically, this is what is on the 4D side. Nothing else. Okay. Any question here on the 4D, and then I'll look in some of the other stuff on the.
Oh, I think we're good on the 4D side.
Where's my window? Oh yeah, here.
So there's one question in the chat about that the REST API would only work on V16. If I'm right, the component only runs on V16, but
the component, yes.
Is any of the code reliant on anything that is?
Yes, the current code. Yeah, the current code relies on the C object and the JSON tools available in V16, which are not available in previous versions. So I have a V12 version of those components, of those methods that use to populate a JSON string. I just use add to a text, just populate a text variable and build the JSON myself without using C object or the JSON tools. That's the same.
Yeah, if necessary, you might be able to migrate it to a more recent version. But yeah, they're probably better off being on 16 anyways.
Yeah. Well, if you're on V15, V14, or V12, you can get the source code from which is in for the V16 database, and then adapt it and backtrack it to a V14 compatible version or V12 compatible version. It's doable. When I moved to migrate to V16 to V16, and I'm not using some of the new tools of V16 R4 or R4 or I5 that came out this week, which I could add some, improve the code to use some of those stuff available on R5. Right. So I'm still relying on 16.2 or 16.3, I guess. Code commands for C object. I still not using the dot notation yet on that component code. Okay, so let's look for the stuff on the 4D side, on the Angular side. So basically, there's a JS for 4D library. This is the source code for the library. On your application, you don't need the source. You would just install it on your application. Use the npm install. This is a npm package. If you guys, if you don't know what an npm package, a node package is, it's just the npm is a library of components, if you will, that are available for JavaScript. In general, it's on the Wakanda platform, you use npm as well to install packages from other people, like stuff from jQuery or a crypto or some utility components that you want to use on your application instead of writing a new one. There's literally thousands, and I would say maybe hundreds of thousands of components out there for anyone to grab and use. JS for 4D is just a new one. And you can just, all you need is to do an npm install JS for 4D and save it on your project, and it then is available for you to use. This component has basically, I would say, 3 modules in it, three set of component sets. One is a set of service for the service classes, which is basically the interface to 4D. They communicate back and forth to 4D. They're used to communicate back and forth to 4D. Basically, there are three service classes for the interface, for the model, and for the collection. And then there are a bunch of UI widgets that you can. I've shown them on some of my demo apps. Some UI widgets that you can use on your application or not. Some of those UI widgets are interface callback to 4D, like the query band widget or the data grid that communicates back and forth to 4D. And there's another set of components, which is the modal dialog service, which allows you to open those modal dialog windows, as I showed. So, and you can then pick and choose the modules you want to use on your application. Basically, there are here instructions how you get that up on your own application, on your own ng modules, Angular modules, and on your own components, how you reference them and use them. As for one thing, I will not get detail into the components. If anyone wants to use it, you can come here, go into the documentation, play with them. One thing I think I want to show is how is the database communication between JS for 4D on the web and the REST API on 4D side. Basically, that is one of the things I was when I migrated my stuff from Flex to JavaScript. I use the same MVC, model view control design pattern we used on the Flex side. We try to use the same thing on the JavaScript side. And that, so each table on 4D, on your database structure, has a representation on the Flex side, on the JavaScript side. So the location table on that Vacchiano application has a couple of fields, and those are the fields on the structure. And that database structure can be exported to Angular and generate one class, which is this. Basically, it has 3 blocks of code. One is just something that will help you deal with strings referencing that reference back to fields in your database. So when you're coding and you want to type for example, a query, a 4D query a string that needs for a field name, you can use the static constants to reference that field. So to avoid any spelling errors in field names. Then there's an internal fields array that allows you that is used by the JS for 4D library. So basically the description of your 4D database. So everything that's on a 4D structure is represented here. Basically the field names, the long name, which is a table.name, the type of the field, if it's required, read-only, indexed, unique. If it's a string and some other stuff. And then there's the getters and setters for each field on that table. This is the data model that and this can be generated. There is code in the data model. Is it here? No. Sorry. Oh yeah, here. Basically, there's this is a little GIF here. There's a method in the 4D side that's called REST export data model. You can create just a dummy method that you just put that call and then you run that method. What that method does, it shows a pop-up of all the tables. You select the table, and then it will get that table and export it, generate the 4D model as below. So this is the location table as it shows up on the 4D structure, and this is the data model representation on Angular side.
Cool. And Julio, there's a question. If you're building a Meteor app, if you're familiar with the Meteor app, can the REST API component, as it's used in 4D, still be used to connect from other?
Yep, from Meteor. Meteor was one of the frameworks I evaluated in the past, and I ended up deciding for Angular2. So yeah, it does. Some of this stuff here was the idea here on the JavaScript was based on Backbone. If you're on the JavaScript realm, you'll know about Backbone. Was a data modeling package available for JavaScript. So I based some of my stuff on Backbone. And so this data model, as you see, it extends the data model. The data model class extends this 4D model. This is the class on JS for 4D that deals with the database interaction. So basically, it has a get record function that you can call from your object, your instance of that class of your location table. You have a location, you do a get record with its parameters to read one record, or get records to grab a bunch of records from the database. a collection, which basically the resulting of a get records is a 4D collection, which is the other class available on JS for 4D, which is actually a collection of 4D models, basically a list of records. And the other functions you have is insert record, update, and delete record. Basically, it implements the CRUD functionality to interact with 4D. And let me just show you a. This is that 4D library. The 4D library web application is also on GitHub. You can see it on 4D 4D library. There you have the actual 4D database and the application I've developed here. Let's look at the source here of just one of the files on the app. Script, the book list. So the book list component. This is basically the Angular application that displays this books. If you look at the code here, basically what it does, this app defines what is the model used by that whatever record. What's the table I'm pulling data from? It's called books EX. I'll show you guys what the EX means. What's the edit window component? If I double click a row, which are the column definitions used there, what they are, how they're filterable. This is a JSON object that describes each column on the application. And the other part of this component, you see the component makes a reference to this HTML. This is the HTML for this page. Not much. So what it does is because it's using some of the components from my library, from JS for 4D, it uses the record list, which is a component that manages a combination of the query band and the data grid. It uses the query band and the data grid from. So it uses the query band and the data grid, describes the parameters of the data grid. This is a reference to a variable on the component, which is the model def, defines the data model to use, the column description, and some other parameters. If I use lazy loading, which means I only show one page of records. When you go to the next page, then I do paging or not. And the page size, 50 records. The Excel file name, if I want to export to Excel, some other parameters. Here on the query band, if I enable sort query, if I enable the button bar, which is this button bar here, and if I want to enable the add record or delete record. So this is will be the code to get that web page up and running. And if we look at the students, is not much difference than that. Student list component, basically the same thing, just maps to a different student. And the HTML, this is the HTML. If you look here, you see that there's the same component named with the TNS suffix. This is the native script version of that view. So the student list component view on native script uses some of these are the components from the native script framework. Basically, there's the search bar at the top and the list view with the grid list of the student list, right? So that's why the TNS here. So the same code base is used for both, for web and and mobile. And so the data models there. So you see the books table. Basically, that's the books ID. So this is this was generated from 4D library. And there's one of the things there in this data model capability functionality. You can actually extend the description of a 4D table to do things like add fields or add calculated fields. For example, for a book, I want to know if that book has been loaned or not, is on loan or not. Okay, that field does not exist on that table, but I can. One of the things I added to the 4D library application, I added one method there called book is out. That's the name of the method. The only thing that method does is return a yes or no, or true or false. If the current book record, so when that method is called, the current book record is available memory. So you can then do anything with that record, with that current record. So what the book is out formula method on 4D side does is do a quick query if that book has any loan record associated to it and returns true or false, and then populates this new field in books X. Also, I can have a subtable, which is all the related records. So the loans list is loans list does a join. So I join the book's ID to loans book underscore ID and generates a list of records for me. Okay, which is just an array of loans. What happened here? What happened here? Hello?
Hi.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Is everything okay?
Sorry.
We can hear you, although when I'm on, I can hear Neko.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, somehow iTunes came up playing its song here behind my back. Okay, forget it. Sorry. So you can have subtables here. So there are lots of things you can extend, ways of extending an existing data model. I think on the students, I don't know if I have anything. Yeah, the students the same way I have the loans list. So the loans list allows me to do this. So this is a loan book. I can populate this grid here with the loan list. And the is loan field tells me if this is an X or a check mark, if this book is available or loaned, right? So this is some of the things you can extend your data model to do, to add more stuff. And let me just go back here to the book list. The web. Here on the data grid, when I do this optimized grid loading, true means I only pull, when I'm pulling the data to populate the grid here, I will pull only those 5 columns. No additional data will be pulled. If I have optimized equal false, then I will pull then everything that's defined in the model here, all the fields defined in this model here will in this case is the book CX. Anything that's in that model will be pulled in for each and every record, every row. So usually you do not want to pull data you're not showing to the user. You only want to pull that data when you hit the record, double click the record, right? And now here, when you double click a record, if that optimize is on, when you double click, before I'm populating this window, the code behind the library will refresh the entire record for you with all the fields, with the purchase on, buy, and the loan info and the book cover picture. Let's see what else I just show here.
Basically, can I jump in with a question?
Yeah, I think it's enough so far. Otherwise, we're gonna could stay here for a very long time. And I'm pretty sure you guys are busy. You have something else to do.
Well,
it's getting close to dinner time here.
Well, I just have one question. Maybe I missed it earlier. But the export of the model, the models, that just is a convenience for the JavaScript on the front end, the way I understand what you were showing. Well, what about if you wanted to hide a particular table from the REST interface itself?
Oh yeah, you don't. I mean, you only export the tables you want, and you're going to use on your website. Right.
So the export function is controlling both the REST access to that table as well as the convenient.
No. This export data model. Okay. Maybe we're mixing things. This export data model, all it does is generate a piece of TypeScript code for your TypeScript for your Angular application, for your Angular project. That's it.
Yeah.
And you can select all tables or one single table. So which is the table that you're going to use on your application, right? You don't need to export tables you're not using on your application, right? That's
and if that location table is not exported, still something else could connect to the REST interface and access that data, or is there a way to hide location table completely from the REST interface?
Oh yeah, if that location, you don't have that data model on your Angular side, on your Angular project, so you will have to use the very low level functionality of the 4D interface class to access the REST API and pull data from a location table, which is what this 4D admin application does. This 4D admin application is something else, right? This 4D admin application uses some very low level functionality made available by the REST API. That one of the things it does, it exports when I hit the table name here, what it does, it calls 4D and gets, at this moment, gets a description of this table. All the fields on this table, those fields that are indexed and those that are not.
It's going through the REST interface to do that.
It's going to the REST interface, but not to the standard get record. This uses a very low level. If you look at the REST interface, there's.
So I'll just rephrase it one other way to make sure I'm being clear. The component itself makes the REST interface, but all tables and all fields of those tables are accessible through that REST interface.
Yeah. Yes, in a way, they are accessible to the REST interface if you want to. The export table, the data model, makes it easy because you just can stick to the MVC model view control design pattern, which is, in my case, I have my component as my controller. My model was the exported data model, and my view is the HTML page. So 3 files, they interact somehow to make my web page work. Back to just to clear up, some of the HTTP services that are made available by the REST API include those that are used for maintaining the database. One is to get list of all 4D lists, the update 4D lists, get list of tables, and get fields in table. Those are the HTTP calls that you can call the database to get the list of all tables in the database, and then I get a description of all the fields in the database. This is not that data model. This is something that runs on the fly. This is not generating an application or anything. This is an application that access and allows me to maintain on a remote database.
Yeah. With the code being included in the component, it would be fairly easy to create a list of tables. If a table or a field is set to invisible or whatnot, or to specifically screen.
Oh yeah.
Or to reference a list somewhere, a manifest of what not to display, or what to limit the component to accessing. Certainly could be controlled. Whether or not it's all those security features are pre-packaged in this component, I don't think that's the point. I think it's more just the exploring the way to connect to 4D and how that can be routed through the libraries and the front end on the web.
Right. So. Yeah, I'm not sure if the latest version of the REST API component that is there, maybe, because one of the things that was to address that situation. Right now, for Wakanda, and you have an option on the table or on the field that indicates that table or field is available for 4DMethod, for 4D mobile.
Right.
So one of the things I'm planning on using on this REST API library is to do that check on that same attribute of the table or a field. If a table is not available to 4D mobile, get list of tables does not see that table.
No, that's a good way to piggyback on that setting.
Yep. Yeah. It's something that's new in V16.
No, well, it's a whirlwind of interfaces that you showed us, and it really shows off what can be done with not only the 4D libraries that you made available in Angular, but just the variety of interfaces that you can create using all those thousands of frameworks out there. Definitely still some learning curve, but I think it's definitely worth taking a look at the connection through the 4D component, through whatever language that you're most comfortable with. Cool.
Yeah, well, one of the things I'm planning, it's as soon as I have some free time, is to do a version of the JS for 4D component that is an Angular package, to have a React version of that same component.
Nice.
That would interact. Instead of using Angular, use React. So we'll see.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this and sharing the components that are available through both Julio's GitHub account, and there's links from the 4DMethod event page. But again, his website is 4ctv.com, and the GitHub page is 4ctv spelled out. And I guess I'm gonna go see if there's any additional questions out there in the in Reddit. I believe we have one general question in Reddit for 4D, but if there's anything else that anyone would like to ask Julio, we can ask here or reach out directly. At least while we're waiting for any other additional questions, one for 4D. Will V17 be the same feature set as V16 R6, or will there be additional features to be released that's 17 only?
Yeah, well, there will be features in between V16 R6 and the release of V17. Is that the question? So yeah, it's V16 R6 does not equal V17. There is, 3 or 4 months of development work done in there, and whether features we decide to add after R6. So that may be a little bit confusing because in the past, in R6 was the new version. So like V15, R6 was V16, but now, yeah, so that has changed as we started calculating the number of months with the R releases. So V16 is not V17. There will be a V16 R6, and then the next release will be V17. That's different than anything we've done in V15, 6, or 14. Does that answer? I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. No, that totally answers it. Yeah. So that there will be more.
Yes.
We have another question from Angelica.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So I was wondering, once you have an Angular app running or whatever you're choosing, and then you do an npm install of the component, I don't understand the connection to how to get like the 4D database into that, to be able to start talking to whatever fields you have in your 4D database.
But let me see if I understand the question. So you have an Angular application and you want to add connection to your 4D database backend, right?
Yeah.
Is that the question? Yeah, okay. So basically what it would do is we have to install the REST API component on 4D side. And
how do you install that on 4D side?
How do you install it on 4D side? Oh,
yeah.
That's a 4D component. On your 4D database, there's a components folder, right? So you
have to be on the design mode of 4D, and then you go to like
you have to be on
component?
design. Yep, you have to be on design mode on 4D. Then you would download this GitHub component here. So on the build folder, there's a components folder with the REST API 4D base. You would copy that to the components folder on your own 4D database. Then you would have to go back and move those sample, those methods that you will have to add to your database. That will get you up and running on 4D side. That's all you have to do.
I'll put a link on the site. I'll just throw it in here. There's a really good documentation from 4D on how to install and access components.
Right. Oh, sure.
And even to make them.
Yep.
Yeah. But it's quite easy. Just plop it in into a folder next to the 4D application, and then 4D will recognize it, and there may be a couple of additional hooks you have to put in your application to actually do something with the component.
Yeah.
But that's all designed to be, at least in this case, minimal, in order to expose enough of the application through the REST interface as possible.
Yeah.
And then you're able to designate, like, once you install that, you can designate whatever table you want to be using in your application.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Because then you would do once you have that installed, then you can you would have this available on 4D side. You would be able to export. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this functionality available on your 4D side. So you could call this method here and run it. It will allow you to export a data model describing your table, and you would use that on the data modeling here. How you would use it on the Angular side, you would just use the 4D module functionality to get the records from 4D, update records on 4D side, delete records from 4D side. Basically, basic CRUD operations.
Oh. Cool, thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome. All right. Well, thank you, Julio. And let me just check the Reddit page one more time, and then we'll just wrap it up. No, I think that's the last one. If anyone else has any other additional questions or comments, now's the time to do it. Until then, I'll just go ahead and talk about our next meeting, which our schedule is available on the website at 4dmethod.com/schedule. In the next meeting on March 7th, we'll be getting a demo of a thin tech application platform by IP Ventures. Steve Brown will be joining us from Australia in Perth. And then on April 25th, we'll welcome back John Bachman, friend of the 4D method, and he'll show us a demo of leveraging 4D with a Jojo web app front end. Yeah, one of those. And we do have an open date on June 13th. So send over some ideas if you'd like to show off some of the work, some of the application, whether or not you wrote it yourself or you're just showing off a 4D or Wakanda application web app. Go ahead and suggest some ideas.
I think that's Zoho.
Soho. No, that's in New York. Thanks, Ed. And any other questions? Feedback is always appreciated, and also your support. If you go check us out, check out our page at Patreon. There's some neat different levels of rewards for supporting the group. Of course, we always appreciate just your presence and interactions. But if you so choose, if you're looking for another way to support us, check out Patreon, and that would be great. So, anyways, let's see. Don't think we have anything else. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next time. Again, Happy New Year, and thanks everyone for joining into another great 4D Method meeting.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Brent.
Okay. Thanks again, Julio, and everyone at 4D and Ricardo as well.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.